All of us UTC team members are very excited to be launching the fall 25 application filing period. So today marks the launch of the CSU application workshops. My colleague Ashley Brackett, as you know, is the other transfer counselor at the UTC. She actually hosted the first workshop this afternoon earlier from 1 to 3, and it was very well attended. So we're happy to see several of you guys join here as well. This will be the only Zoom CSU application workshop, so I'm glad you took advantage of it. We are recording it, like I mentioned earlier, in case you didn't hear that. So we're recording it so that we can upload the recording onto the UTC website. And then that way, students who are not able to go to a workshop in person will be able to just watch the recording and hopefully still get the assistance they need in completing their Cal State Apply application. So let's go ahead and get started on the nitty-gritty. We're so excited that you are interested in applying to one of the campuses in the largest university system in the world. The Cal States make up definitely the nation's, and I think we can say the world. It's the largest public university system. It is a known fact that 1 in 10 employees in California are CSU graduates. The CSU is actually the university system that awards nearly half of California's bachelor's degrees. It was set up such from the beginning of time. The California Master Educational Plan set out to find a public institution system or create a system where the majority of the universities, the majority of the students in the state of California would be served. So it was made that way by design. It was created to be able to accommodate approximately, the target would be 2/3 of all California residents. High school graduates would be, according to the master plan, the idea was that 2/3 of those high school graduates would be able to gain realistic, easy access to the CSU, and that 1/3 of them would be served by the UC. The UCs were given less public aid per se, but they were also given more domain to be able to raise their own funds, whereas the CSUs are more state budget dependent and they have more constraints as far as how they raise funds. But it was all designed intentionally, like I said. And so currently applying to a CSU allows you the opportunity to fill out just one application, which is called the Cal State Apply application. And you could just Google CSU or Cal State Apply, CSU application, and you'll find the top hits are going to lead you straight to calstateapply.edu. If you don't already have an account, go ahead and start creating it right now as you listen. You will be able to start submitting applications as of today. Officially started at 6 in the morning, and you will be able to continue to submit until technically it's going to be December 2nd this year, but we like to think of it as November 30th because that's the traditional deadline. The application fee is $70, and that will give you the opportunity to apply to up to 4 campuses for free if you're eligible, or you would pay $70 per campus, and then you can apply to as many as you would like. So let's go ahead and make sure that you're eligible to apply first. We think that by now you know what you're doing. You've learned a few tricks of the trade as far as, you know, how to plan for transfer. Hopefully you've met with a counselor and done a transfer evaluation and you know that you're eligible. But let's just kind of review a few factors that can really make a difference in terms of your selection. So we definitely want to urge you that you meet with a counselor to verify that you have met all the requirements. And this might entail maybe major course specific requirements that might be required by campuses that are impacted, or programs that really screen a little bit deeper, right? So maybe they're saying, okay, so the basic requirements are not going to be good enough. This program is very impacted, it's very popular, and because of that, we've established additional requirements. So this is a good time to go meet with the counselor and just double check that you are meeting the admissions requirements, because if there was some courses that maybe were not added to your plan and you haven't taken them, you're still in time to be able to add those for spring, maybe even winter if need be. All right. So have that meeting and schedule them now, like tonight or tomorrow, because as we draw closer to the winter spring registration time, counseling appointments are going to start getting booked. Already right now, Ashley and I are booked 2-3 weeks out. So I would recommend you act on that that counseling appointment as soon as possible. Attending this workshop is definitely a really important step. We get a lot of feedback from students that these workshops were very helpful. And then you get to work and you complete your application. We do highly encourage you to not press submit until you have had a counselor review your application. We have created appointment reason codes, as we call them, on your counseling appointment system. So you can actually say that the reason for meeting with a counselor is to review your university application. That'll allocate you a 30-minute appointment, and we're more than happy to sit down and review your entire application so that before you press submit, you have that peace of mind that your application is being submitted error-free. So take advantage of that opportunity. Definitely submit no later than December 2nd, but I would like to add the little asterisk footnote here and right at the bottom of the screen is reminding you that the tail end of the month of November, that's when thousands, hundreds of thousands of students are going to be on that same system, on that same database or infrastructure, doing the same thing you are. Every year, without fail, we see that maybe come about November 15th, the last 2 weeks of November, the application system starts to run very slow. And it just takes sometimes twice as long to review your application and to make changes on the coursework than it would have normally taken if you had done this review early on. So we'd like to recommend for our Hancock students to think of the deadline being as November 15th. We understand sometimes that's not possible, but try to do the best you can to be done early and submit. Also, as you know, in the tail end of November, you'll start getting close to finals, Thanksgiving break. The stress level goes up based on, coursework pressures, maybe even personal things and work, holidays, busy time. So we just recommend that you get it done sooner and just be able to focus on your coursework and other things and not have an additional thing hanging over the back of your head, right? All righty. After you've pressed submit, we recommend that you check your email regularly. The universities will contact you by email. They will let you know what the next steps are. At the very least, you should be receiving an email that says, "Thank you for applying to San Marcos State. We look forward to, communicating with you at a later time," or something like that, okay? They'll also send you links, and they'll also give you access to a portal, and that will happen early on. So you definitely want to open the emails as they come in so that you can be tackling those to-do items or follow-up items one at a time instead of letting them pile up. Sometimes deadlines come with those to-do items, and you definitely don't want to miss deadlines, because sometimes that can mean that your application is canceled out. And as soon as they give you access to the portals, which could be as early as possibly December, maybe even earlier, um, we want you to go ahead and set those up. Don't be thinking like, oh, I'll just get to that later. I'm not even sure if I'm going to want to go to that school. Just set up the portal. It only takes a few minutes. Sometimes setting up those passwords can be a little tricky or even time consuming, but it's pretty straightforward. And once you have them set up, that becomes the communication hub for universities. They normally will refer to as, we're rolling out updates, or we're rolling out a to-do item on your portal. And that's exactly what they do. They press a button and that communication is rolled out and posted on your portal. And that's how you know. So like, there won't be an excuse if you said, I didn't know that I had to submit something because I didn't see my portal. So that will never be an excuse. Okay, so the minimum requirements for Cal States is going to be probably enough for many universities. There's several universities out there that will admit you as long as you meet what you see on your screen right now. That's kind of exciting, right? So as long as you have a 2.0, 60 transferable units, and transferable at Hancock is defined, at least for the CSU, is defined as all 100 level courses. Those are all CSU transferable. And so completing at least 30 units of your GE along with, along in those 60 units is what they want. They want to see at least a C or better in the CSU GE. And within the CSU GE, within those 30 units, by the way, it usually would be about 36, 39 units to complete the CSU GE. So 30 units is kind of having most of the GE done. Maybe you would just be missing 2 or 3 classes, right? And if push comes to shove and you just don't have enough room to tackle all the GE by the end of spring, which is when you have to have all your courses done to still be eligible to meet the fall 25 admissions requirements that you see on your screen. But let's say that you just can't add any more courses and that you're going to have to leave out 2 GEs. It's okay. You're not expected to have a full GE certification. Just as long as maybe you have 30 of those units, you're fine. But what you definitely do not want to miss is any one of these golden 4 that you see listed at the bottom of your screen. So that would be all of Area A, the CSU General Education Area A, that's oral communication, which is like Speech 101 or 102. You might have also taken 106 maybe, or written communication, which would be English 101, that's the only choice, or A3, which would be your critical thinking, and that would be things such as English 103 or Philosophy 114 or Philosophy 112 at Hancock, and math. And for math, we are just talking about one college level math. So as long as you did one college level math, say something like Math 100 or Math 123, you would meet those golden 4 requirements, right? So you have to have those. You will not be admitted to any CSU, even if you were just missing one of those. Okay, any questions on that? So this is the basic CSU eligibility. This is good for schools like Channel Islands, Fresno, Humboldt State, Cal Poly Humboldt, as it's now called, Dominguez Hills, San Bernardino, many of these schools that are not impacted at the campus level. This is all you need and you're going to be selected. Sometimes schools are not impacted at the campus level. Like Cal Poly is one of the examples of the schools that are impacted at the campus level. That means every single major at Cal Poly SLO is impacted, meaning it receives more applications than they have spaces. Sometimes universities are not impacted at the campus level at all, but they might be impacted at the program level, meaning that certain majors are impacted. So even though you may have heard from another friend, oh, apply to Channel Islands, it's really easy. Everybody gets in as long as they meet the minimum requirements. It could be that for a certain major, it takes a little more to get in than that. And it just happens to be at Channel Islands, the only major that is impacted is nursing. That one does have additional requirements. So if in doubt, always check with your counselor or just go to the university website. So another thing that's important in terms of you filling out the application is knowing whether you are earning an associate's degree for transfer. It sounds like a no-brainer kind of a question, right? But there's something that happens at Hancock that makes it a little confusing. And that is the fact that we have created these majors called liberal arts, and maybe it'll be like liberal arts, math and science for transfer. We have a second one called liberal arts, arts and humanities for transfer, and a third one that's called liberal arts, social and behavioral sciences for transfer. Those three associate's degrees, though the word says for transfer, they're not a part of this ADT group of associate's degrees. It just gets confusing because they are called for transfer, but they're not ADTs. So ADTs are their own set of associates. They have been designed and created in conjunction with Cal State, school input. And so the Cal States have been giving students who complete those associate's degrees extra admissions consideration. So that's why on the application, one of the first questions that you will have to answer to once you let them know you're attending a community college, it'll ask you, are you going to be earning a degree at your community college? And if so, is it an associate's degree for transfer? In fact, the question's you'll see it in a minute, but it'll ask more like, which one of these best describes you? Just transferring with 60 units or more, or transferring with an associate's degree for transfer. So again, if it's a liberal arts, you don't have to say yes, just say no, I'm just going to transfer with 60 units. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions on that, or let Jose know when you want a breakout session. So you want to know if you've completed all the necessary classes to make you competitive. Are there lower division major courses that are required for this program? When we say program, we're basically talking about a major at a particular school, at a particular university. Have you done all the GE? Have you done at least 30 units? Will you have 60 units? I just met with a student today, and she was going to be short of 3 units. She didn't know, so we had to go out and change her plan so that she could have at least 60 by the end of spring. Otherwise, she would have applied and she would have been denied because that program she's applying to needs at least 60. There's a couple of CSUs that are taking some lower division transfer students, but the majority of them want at least 60. So you definitely also want to know if your program is impacted, because like I said before, the impaction usually means higher requirements, right? Higher GPAs and maybe some lower division specific major courses. So those are the main considerations, and hopefully again you're all like, I'm still good to go, Maria, I'm ready to apply. And hopefully by now all of you have already created your Cal State Apply account so that you can start poking around as you listen and possibly even see some of the screens. Go find them and see how they feel. So once again, here's the application timeline for fall of 25. Fall is when they receive the highest number of applications, all universities. It's standard and universal. And that's why the CSUs and the UCs will have you apply a year in advance, right? Because that's the bulk of their application review. Some universities will also accept applications for spring term. So that would have you start with them in January instead of in August, right? So spring 26, for example, would be the next filing period when you can potentially think of applying. And for that, you would apply in the month of August. So that would be the August of 25, like, almost like, 10 months from now, you would apply for January of 26. And that's something for you to consider, and to it's important to know that timeline, because you might decide if you apply for fall and you don't get an offer that you're really happy with, maybe your top choice university didn't offer you admissions, but some other schools did, and you just went and visited them, and you're not feeling it. You might decide, well, if I have the chance to reapply in August for spring, I don't mind staying at Hancock another semester, or maybe working full time and just delaying my university starting timeline by about 4 months. So that's a strategy that you might want to consult with a counselor. So these are the kinds of information pieces you'll need to complete your application. So having a copy of your Hancock transcript on printed and sitting on the side of your computer will be really helpful. If you want to split your screen, you can also have the transcript on one side and the Cal State Apply application website on the other, and that also works. Your social, most of you probably know it by memory. Kind of know your citizenship status. I know that sounds like a no-brainer, but there are some students that are not clear on that citizenship status. So make sure you consult with us if you have any questions on that. Your annual income for your parents, if you're a dependent, meaning that you were born before January 1st of 2002, or for yourself if you were born after that. You'll also need a credit card or PayPal access in order to pay for your fees if you were not found to be eligible for the fee waiver. The application will tell you based on the income question, it'll let you know right away if you are eligible for the fee waiver or not. You also would want to consider applying for the EOP program. And so there will be additional information that you will need for that, such as, what was your parents' highest educational level is one of the questions that you'll need to know. And so you'll also be needing some parental background information for that, for EOP, as well as 2 recommenders for EOP. Although the recommenders and the EOP questions can be answered at a later time, and you can still submit and then come back to the EOP portion of the application. The EOP portion of the application only pops up for students who indicate that they are interested in being considered for the EOP program, the Educational Opportunity Program, which assists, supports, and even provides additional grant funding for students who come from low-income, first-generation college families. So that's just something to keep in mind if you are feeling like you're limited on time and you want to come back to the EOP questions, consult with us. There are a few schools like Fresno State that want the entire EOP application to be completed, at least the student responses, by the same deadline as the CSU application deadline. But the majority of the universities will let you submit the Cal State Apply and then come back and do your portion by some of them will even give you up to January 15th to finish the EOP questions. So to determine whether you're dependent or independent, the universities are going to ask these questions on the application. And if at least one of them applies to you, then you will be considered an independent student. So basically, are you going to be 24 in this next school year? So even if you're only 23 now, as long as you're going to be turning 24 by January 1st of the year 2026, you would be still considered you could be considered an independent student. Or if you're married, have a child, that kind of these kinds of situations can make you an independent student, even if you're not 24 yet. Okay. And I know a lot of students think that because, like it's driven based on whether your parents claim you on their tax returns, and that's not the case. So even if your parents don't claim you on their tax returns, if none of these apply to you, then you're going to automatically be considered a dependent, and your parents' income is going to be required on the admissions application as well as on the FAFSA. So here we go. Let's get started. So you can all start rolling up your sleeves. We're going to start getting into the application interface. So it looks like this. Once you get to Cal State Apply, you'll scroll down. There's some beautiful student pictures at the very top. you'll scroll down more towards the lower half of the screen, and you'll see a red bar like this that you can say apply, and then you will select your term that you want to apply for fall of 25. So some of you may already have a CalState Apply account. Maybe you even filled it out because maybe you applied for spring of 25. All your data will still be there and you will be able to transfer it in. So either way, you will just be able to select fall 25 and continue. And again, your data will be transferred in. The same thing will happen if even if you didn't apply before, but you've completed the CSU planner and you entered your classes there, those can also be transferred in. So you can say, use the data from the previous application, or you can say, I already have a transfer planner account. Either one of those two boxes continuing there will allow you to then copy all the information. If for some reason you do not want to use that info and you want to start with a clean slate, then you will be able to just click on the lower portion that says, no, don't copy. I'm just going to start a new application, which might apply to the majority of you. So once you keep going like this, it will actually then prompt you to sign in or to create the account. And then one of the first things, like I said earlier, it will ask you for your educational goal. And you definitely want to click that first radio button. You want to say that you are going after the first bachelor's degree. Obviously, unless you do have a bachelor's already, you would be saying that you have a second bachelor's or you're going for the second bachelor's. Some universities don't accept students that already have a bachelor's. So hopefully none of you guys will have to check that radio button. If there's anybody out there that already has a bachelor's, let me know, or go check the websites for the schools you're thinking of applying to and double check that they do accept second bachelor's students. And then the bottom follow-up question, which asks, which of the following best describes your current educational plan? This is a very important question. So again, if you know you're earning an Associates in Arts for transfer or an Associates in Science for transfer, and you will know that by going to your Degree Works audit on your Hancock portal. Just click on Degree Works and see what program you're under. If it's not one of those AATs or ASTs, don't click on that radio button. Otherwise, you will be bugged to death later on to submit proof of your ADT degree. ADT is more like the plural to encompass AA and AST. So when you hear me say ADT, I'm talking about those associate's degrees for transfer. So don't click on that if what you're earning is a liberal arts for transfer degree. And if you are clicking on it, you're going to be asked to, oops, I went forward. You're going to be asked to indicate which of the ADTs you're earning. And that'll be here at the bottom. Okay. All righty. So then real soon after you create your profile and indicated what kind of degree you're earning, you're going to be asked to add a program. In fact, you have to at least add one program or one major, one school that you're applying to before the application system will let you see the whole application. So at that point, let's say that you just go and click where it says add a program, which is going to look, well, before I go to the next screen, I want to highlight something that's important. When you go look on that add a program, pay attention to the program source, because nowadays there's more and more online programs, and those are typically listed as extension. There will be a word named extension. There might be a word that says online. If you're wanting to go to the campus and have face-to-face instruction, you don't want to select that program. You want to select the one that says campus. So it could be that you're applying to Channel Islands and maybe you want the online psychology program. So then make sure that it says online or extension, something along those lines. Don't select campus, otherwise they're going to be admitting you to the campus and expect you to go in person, or vice versa. And then this is what the screen looks like when you go to add. So a couple of things that I want to add is here where it says view the selected program, search for the program or organization. You could just type on there. You can even type Channel Island Psychology Online, and that'll really narrow down the search. Or you can click on filters and just say, well, I'm kind of not sure which schools. I kind of want to see more. Hopefully by now you're sure on the schools you're applying to, but the filter will allow you to search by campus, by, like mode, delivery mode, whether it's just online or maybe even by major. So that's one way to filter everything. And you can see here, Channel Islands Extension, and this is that BS in Business Online. Or you can just go Channel Islands Undergraduate, and those are the programs that are offered at the main campus. And you would just click on the plus sign and voila, you just added that program. So that's like one program it's already lined up. It's kind of like in your cart, in your shopping cart, if you will. Still haven't applied. You can still be thinking about it, but you've added it on your cart. You'll see another screen that shows you how it looks when you've got them in there. And you can have them in there, but not apply to them. Like you can just select each program individually and submit those applications. There's also going to be a button to submit them all at the same time. So, whatever works for you. So earning the ADT, again, here it's going to ask you, if you are transferring with an ADT, what is the name of the community college that's going to be granting or awarding that degree? And what's the ADT program called? Is it Administration of Justice, Business Psychology, whatever? So then that is something you'll see. Things to keep in mind is that the CSUs will actually be requiring that you verify your ADT, like basically prove to us that you are earning an associate's degree. And that deadline is going to be in about the middle of February, by when the ADT degree has to be verified. And it's important because they're going to basically be giving you extra points in the admissions process just for earning an ADT by spring semester. It doesn't have to be done now, as long as it's done by the spring. So what happens is they're wanting to know if you said you're earning an ADT, they want to see proof. So our campus, Hancock, is actually going to be verifying your degree for you. It doesn't always happen at all campuses. Many campuses place the responsibility on the student. So the student has to get this form from the Cal States or from their admissions office, fill it out, submit it to the CSUs. We do it for you, but you have to apply for your ADT degree. So it's connected. So anybody who applies for their ADT degree sometime in the spring, like when the semester first starts and all the way through like the middle of February, we will what we call e-verify them. We will add them on this electronic verification system, and the Cal States will know that you did earn it or that you will be earning it by spring, and they'll allocate those extra points for admissions, okay? So again, something to converse with, make a note of, to talk to your counselor about. So let's see. If you're earning an associate's degree for transfer, you can check the status on here to confirm that the ADT verification was received by the CSU. Keep in mind that there's a little bit of a lag. We don't verify the degrees until maybe more like middle of February, third, fourth week of February is when we start to verify them. We wait, till everybody's kind of had a chance to apply for those degrees, and then we batch verify them. But you can check on your application. I would just monitor and keep an eye on that. I would say if it's not showing that your degree has been verified by about the end of the first week of March, I would go check with your counselor and or the admissions office to find out what happened and to make sure that it gets verified by the March 15th deadline. Okay, so let's see. You don't be surprised if you get this ADT warning. This will say, wait a minute, there's an error here. Be on the alert. There's a problem. You stated you're earning an associate's degree for transfer, but you're applying to a major that doesn't match that associate's degree for transfer. It'll give you this error. It's just alerting you, like, how can you get the points for the ADT when you're not applying to the right major? Because you will only get the points if you're applying to the corresponding major. Okay. And to find out if that's the corresponding major, you can go to the ADT statewide website, or you can talk to us, one of us counselors, and we'll help you. This error will also appear if the campus that you're applying to doesn't honor the ADT, meaning like Cal Poly. Cal Poly's like, we love those ADTs. We do give you a little bit of points for having an associate's degree, but we don't give you the same like big consideration that other Cal States do. And that will also generate this error message. So you're like, what the heck? Why is it giving me this error if I'm earning an associate's in business administration and I am applying to the matching program at Cal Poly? It's the business administration bachelor's degree. They match. So why am I getting this error message? It's because Cal Poly doesn't grant the same level of consideration for an ADT as other Cal States do. So just ignore it in that case and go, okay, no, I knew that. That's fine. I still have an ADT and I still want to apply to that major. So continue. Okay. The residency question is straightforward, but it could be very important for students who are considered AB 540. So AB 540 students pay special attention, or if you have a student that's a friend that's a dreamer or is an AB 540 student, please have them select none on their citizenship status here, or if that's you, go ahead and make sure you select none. All right. And where it asks if you claim California as your residency state, some students become confused and say, no, because I'm not a permanent resident. But you do not want to say no. You want to say yes. Yes, I live in California. I've been living in California all this year. You better believe I'm a California resident. Yes, I am. Even if I'm an AB 540 student, I'm a California resident. And that is all there is to say about that, unless you have questions. All righty. So thank you for sending the H numbers. I just want to give a reminder, if you haven't already sent your H numbers to Pam's story privately or in the chat, please do so right now. And then the tuition question is also important. They're starting to screen and determine, okay, who are we going to be charging out-of-state tuition to? So this question says, what was your tuition status at your last college that you attended? And so all of you will be saying in-state tuition because you are paying in-state tuition. Unless you're an out-of-state student, you can go ahead and say out-of-state, and that'll be a red flag for them to say, well, if they were paying out-of-state tuition at Hancock, then we're going to be flagging them to pay out-of-state tuition with us as well, unless they can prove us otherwise. So, and here's what we call the famous CSU Cal State Apply dashboard. So this is like your GPS. This is like your car's dashboard that tells you how much gas you have remaining, what your speed is, that kind of a thing, your destination. 4 quadrants, 4 big broad areas that they're going to be asking you questions on. Each of these sections has its own set of sub questions in them. And you can bounce around, skip around, click around, answer one question here, one question there. Don't recommend you do that. Kind of recommend you take them by quadrants, more orderly, more seamless like that. But I don't know, sometimes you might run into a screen that you feel like you can't answer at the moment for whatever reason. And it's okay to just sort of, skip out of that and go to the next one or go to a different quadrant. At the top, you find 4 tabs. There's that status tab that I was talking about. Not only can you check your ADT status, but you can check your application status on there as well. And the application status just basically tells you like if you submitted it or not, but it doesn't really say whether you were admitted or not. Those decisions are never posted here. They're going to be posted at the university portal for the universities that you apply to. Adding a program, that tab is where you would go and add more programs. You'll see what that looks like in a minute. And then submitting the application is where you would go once you're ready to submit. You can't submit until all of the quadrants are completely green. Like you see the program materials quadrant is 1 out of 1. That's all done. It's all green. It's ready to go. But all the other 3 must also be done before you're allowed to submit even one application. On the submit button, or submit tab, I should say, you can also verify if you were qualified for the fee waiver or not. So once you've answered the income question, which resides in the personal information, you'll be able to come into the submit application tab up here, and then you'll be able to check and see if you qualified for the fee waiver. So that might be helpful to know early on in terms of deciding how many schools you might add and apply to. The coursework entry is probably one of the most important sections of the application. And that's probably where you're going to do the most heavy lifting. And that's where you're going to do the most work. You are required to enter every single college and university you attended, whether it's abroad or international or domestic. You also have to enter all the coursework, and we underlined all. That means non-transferable. That means failed courses. All have to be entered. The only ones you do not have to enter are the ones that didn't have any credit, or like Basque courses are a great example. Math lab, that kind of a thing. You don't have to enter those. Entering grades is important. Make note of this. If you ever repeated a class, you are a smarty pants. You're good. Glad you did that, because that first substandard grade, you no longer have to report as that D or F. Now you can report it as an RP, which will prevent that D or F from being calculated into your transferable GPA. Totally cool with the Cal States. They want you to do that. You worked for it, you planned, you were strategic, you retook the class and passed it with a better grade. They will not hold you accountable for that D or F. They will accept that RP and the D or F are out of your transferable GPA. That decides whether you're in or not. If you had a D or an F and you did not need to retake the class, maybe you changed your major, you don't need that class anymore, or maybe you just don't want to take it anymore. So you can work with a counselor to process what's called an academic renewal petition. And then that way you don't have to report that D or F in the same way as a repeat. You would then enter AR as your grade. Again, if you have any questions about that, talk to a counselor about that. What I normally do when a student comes in to talk to me about, like, I'm ready to apply, can you double check that everything's good to go and I have all the classes I'm going to need? I check all of that, yes, but I also scan all the grades, and I'm looking for D's or F's, and I'm looking to see if those D's or F's were repeated. If they were repeated, no problem. I keep moving. But if I don't see a repeated course, then I start looking at, is the student eligible for academic renewal? Let's have that conversation. But let's try to do something with those D's or F's. I do not want to see any student. I would hate to see you having to report a D or an F. I know sometimes you have to, sometimes, you know, it's like, I don't want to retake it. My GPA can withstand it. I think I can still get in with the GPA that I have. If that's the case, you know, you have to make that judgment call, but just know that your higher ed GPA is always going to be dragged down by that grade. So consider that academic renewal and talk to your counselor about that. Withdrawals, those classes have to be entered as well. Okay. So, and like I said, the non-transferable courses, say you took 300 level courses, those are not transferable. You still have to enter them, and the W's still have to be entered as well. Try to mirror your application course entries to your transcript. They should be like a mirror. In fact, when you enter your courses on Cal State Apply, enter them in the same order as you're seeing them in the transcript, because that will make your review of the application and ensuring that all the courses and the grades were entered correctly. That'll make that a lot easier for you and for the counselor that's reviewing your application. Because believe me, once you have your application done and you're tired and you've seen these numbers and these letters so many times, and you're scanning through the transcript or through the coursework entry to see that everything was correct. I mean, everything's going to be grades and classes. It's going to be hard to catch that a C was supposed to have been entered as a B, or that maybe you left a class out or something like that. So just try to mirror your transcript as you enter the courses. All righty. Any questions? Are we good so far, guys? Okay, let's wind down here. Just a few more tips to adding your coursework. Pay attention, because this question comes up all the time. So on here, you're going to add a semester, and then you're going to indicate that it's fall 2015. Type freshman for your first year. Students get really confused about the class standing, but it has no bearing on anything. So you can choose to say freshman for every year except your last year here, or you can choose to do half of the year's freshman, half of the year's sophomore. It doesn't matter. You choose whatever you want. And then the subject is another source of confusion, and students spend way too much time on this. So when you enter your class, for example, you start entering ENGL 101. So you're going to type slowly. I highly strongly encourage you to type very slow, because the system's going to try to help you by giving you a drop-down menu and say, oh, you want ENGL 101, 102, 103. It's going to start giving you all the Hancock ENGL courses. It'll make it really easy. You could just select from that drop-down menu, and then it'll auto-populate the title to the class, introduction to, whatever, biology, freshman, composition, in this case. It won't put in the subject. You'll have to select the subject. That's why it's blue here. And so you will have to then go on this drop-down menu where the down arrow is, and go find English. So if you were not able to find the subject that best fits that course you're entering, don't spend any more time on that. Find the closest topic that you think fits. It's totally okay with the Cal States. That has no bearing on anything. You can even find special topics and just go scroll down to the S's and use that. If you do not find anything that matches better, you could just call it special topics, okay? The units will auto-populate, and the drop-down menu on the 00 is, in case you have to enter a class and it was just a half a unit class, you would say 0 where the 4 is, 0 units there, 0.5 on that 00 drop-down menu. That means a half a unit. And then the letter grade, you will have to enter yourself manually. And the transferable box, the check mark in there, should be auto-populating, because all the transferable courses are programmed up against assist.org. So if the classes you're entering live in assist.org, the system's going to auto-populate them like I just talked about, and it's also going to auto-populate the check mark. Your job is to make sure that if for some reason the class didn't auto-populate, that you do check the check mark in the transferable box, if in fact the class was a 100 level and transferable. If it was not transferable, then you want to make sure that the check is not in that little box, okay? All righty, moving forward. So let's go ahead. AP exam credits, there's a section for them. Right now you can see that section is on the left-hand side, the menu here, standardized tests, and you can enter the exam you took here, and you can enter this exam AP ID when you took the class. It doesn't have to be exact, you guys. If you think it was in your senior year, just say, you know, May 1st of whatever year it was that you were a senior. That's all. Don't worry about that. They're going to get your transcripts anyways, and they don't care if it was an approximate date. Okay. Calculating your transfer GPA is an option that you have to click on. So I always recommend that students click on this recalculate. Every time you make edits to your coursework entry, you can come back and recalculate the GPA. When you submit, make a note of what that GPA was, okay? And then also how many units that they think you completed, but these are just completed units. These are the units that were used to calculate your GPA. They do not include the courses you had in progress when you submitted the application, nor the ones that you are planning on taking the next semesters. And then when you think you're done entering all the courses, you're going to come back to the main screen in that section, and you're going to say, yep, I'm done. So click yes, I'm done entering my transcripts, and you will go ahead and save that transcript, okay? If you want to review your coursework but don't want to have to go through this completion questions all over again, just click on preview this transcript, and that'll get you to just go in and see what you entered, but without having to make additional confirmation questions. All right, so the golden four, like we said earlier, are very important. So they have a whole screen that has you double check, like, okay, you said you had the golden four, where are they? Let's double check. It should auto-populate them from your coursework entry. So your job is going to be to just make sure that it connected the right courses. All right, and then you can go ahead and save and continue here. All right, so here's a little bit on EOP and who's eligible for EOP. So being eligible for EOP, you have to meet the income criteria. So depending on the family size, that's what's going to determine the acceptable parental income. And then if you're a dependent student, let's see, you would be on the right hand side out here. So this is the family size. I don't know why they call it total parental income here. It should be more like total student income on this side, but that's more for like independent students, I guess, because, or they should say family income, because the independent student could be married or have a partner, and that then they would include their income as well in here. But this is independent student and this is dependent student. So you can kind of take a peek and see if your family size is 6, then your parents cannot make more than $79,100, or else you will not be eligible for EOP. So looking at this table here will save you some time. There's no need to fill out the application for EOP if you don't meet the income criteria. And California, or students that are eligible for 8540 are also eligible for EOP. That you don't have to be a permanent resident. You can be a dreamer or an 8540 student, and you would still qualify for EOP. Okay. So this is where the EOP application resides. It's in the supporting information quadrant. And some tips for the EOP application is most campuses, if I want to say pretty much all CSU campuses will require that you opt into EOP now at the time of admissions. If you don't say yes to EOP on the Cal State Apply application now, you won't have the option to do so once you're admitted and you're already there. And again, some campuses will allow you to do the EOP portion of the application until January 31st. And then the recommendations can take all the way through January 31st to be submitted, except for, like I said, Fresno State, they want everything to be done at the same time as the overall admissions application. So there is this link in here that takes you to a website. You can actually just Google EOP admissions by term or CSU EOP admissions by term. And I love that website. It's going to give you a chart, and it's going to give you a list of all Cal states and when their EOP deadlines are, like for the student part and for the recommender part. It'll tell you by when all of that has to be submitted. So make sure you Google or jot down EOP admissions by term. I don't have time to go to it, but if we really need to, I can go in. If we have time at the end, I can come back and go do it. If you're a veteran, you're going to be uploading DD-214 form, and it's pretty easy to upload, and there's a screen for it on here. Let me know if there's any veterans that need help with that in the room. And then there's going to be some campuses that have created their very own specific questions. And there's a part of the application that allowed them to personalize some questions just for those campuses. So when you add those programs or, add that major, that school to your application, it'll automatically populate a page for them in the program materials section. So you would go to the program materials section and you would see which campuses are asking you for additional information. They will all have something in there. They will at least have a page that says, oh, if you want to learn more about this campus or you want to schedule a tour, click on these links. That's the very least what they will all have. But then others will have a tab at the top that says supplemental questions or additional questions or forms to upload. So you can click on those tabs and see what else they might need you to respond to for just that campus. Expect some questions from Cal Poly, Long Beach, San Diego, Fullerton. There's a few others that will also ask a few questions on there. And this is what it would look like. This is a screenshot to show you. The home tab just has that basic information that I was talking about. And then in Cal Poly's case, there's questions and recommendations. And so this is kind of old. I don't know why it says recommendations. I'll have to take a peek at the brand new Cal State Apply and see if the recommendations tab is still in there. I don't think that's EOP recommendations because those would have been in the EOP segment. So I wouldn't be surprised if the recommendations tab for Cal Poly SLO are no longer there, maybe just the questions. But at any rate, it will ask you a few more questions. Just go ahead and answer them. Once again, for Cal Poly SLO, it's going to ask you about whether you were involved in extracurricular activities and whether you worked while you were in college. Make sure you include everything, even unpaid stuff, even things in the community, at your church, even at your own home. If you have regular chores that you have to do, if you're responsible for picking up siblings from school or dropping them off, if you're responsible for going with your parents to interpret for them to doctor's appointments or things like that, make sure, that takes time from your studying. Make sure that you use that as extracurricular or even unpaid work and give yourself credit for those hours on the Cal Poly application. Again, if you have more questions, you can ask Jose or I later on. Towards the end of your application, once you're all done, I recommend you go up to the very top of the screen on the right side next to the sign out button. You'll see your name and a drop down menu right here. Click on that down arrow and it's going to show you this menu. And then I would recommend that you click on the extended profile so that you can double check that the major you entered or the associate's degree that you entered as, earning at Hancock is, if it's an ADT, to make sure that it is an ADT. If not, it shouldn't say ADT in there. That's one last check. So this is what it's going to look like when you're ready to submit. It'll have all the programs that you added. So at this point, if all of the applications are done, I can just press submit all. If the program is unavailable, maybe the deadline's already passed, I can just click trash. or maybe you added a bunch of them, you just got a little trigger happy, and now you're like, oh, yikes, I didn't qualify for the fee waiver and I can only apply to 3 or 2. You can just click on the trash can right here, and you will be able to delete that school. Again, you can just press submit all on this blue button. If the red wasn't there, you could see the submit all button. You could click on that to just boom, apply to all schools at the same time. Or you can just submit individually in here. Okay. And again, this is where you can check and see if the fee waiver, if you were approved, you would have to click on the submit application. As soon as you have done the income questions on that personal tab or quadrant, then you can come and check the fee waiver in here. Okay. All righty. So fee waiver is applied when you submit your application, and it tells you you owe $0. Happy day. You qualify for the fee waiver. Okay, let me go back to this one. Payment. This is how it works. Simple as that. Alrighty, so that's how it works, guys. Are you guys ready to get working? It's time. Let's do it. I think the last few slides on here are just more examples of what it looks like once you have applied or are done. Just some reminders: schedule an appointment to have your application reviewed. Check your email very frequently. Do not wait till the last minute, please. You will thank us, because it just works so slow. I mean, I'll be sitting there trying to review an application, and this thing is taking forever just to load, you know, an entry that we just made. And it's just so frustrating for you mostly, and us, because we might have students waiting to see us. But that's basically it. We're there. We want to review your application. I don't care if I have to stay a little later, or like we see you at a drop-in. We want to review your application. Please make an appointment. Alrighty. Okay. Make sure when you set your account, hopefully you haven't set it up with the Hancock email. Don't use the Hancock email. Use your external email. And that's it. Any questions? You've all been very quiet. All right, then we will stop the recording, and we'll just start taking questions individually or in the breakout rooms. Thank you for coming.